Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are rounding up all the new movies in February 2024. Yes, we watched an incredible 13 new releases that came out in February. Again, I'm really starting to watch a lot of films this year and dedicate a lot of time to YouTube, and that is showing obviously in the videos. We did the same thing in January, we watched a lot. But here we go, let's get into it. We've got movies from the cinema, we've got some older releases that obviously have been re-released for like, the Oscars and stuff like that. And then we also have some streaming stuff as well thrown in there. So, bottom of the list, now this is where it's probably going to cause a bit of thing in the comments. Most people's worst film for February will have been Madam Web, but mine is not. I actually put in 13th place Upgraded. Now, Upgraded is the new movie on Amazon Prime Video. It's a bit of a rom-com type of film. And, even just looking at the poster, it just looks bad, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? So going into it, I wasn't sold on it. The plot of the film was very dull. The script was very plain. The acting performances was awful. Clear path to be one of my worst films of the year. Just found it to be very boring. Very, it's been done before. Made in Manhattan kind of vibes in terms of lying, a woman lying about who she is to impress a guy that's rich or whatever. And obviously it comes back to bite her in the butt and all that kind of stuff. But Upgraded, yeah, should be downgraded in my opinion. 1 star. Moving on then to number 12. And of course, this is where everyone expects it to be. Well, maybe not expected to be, but Madam Web. I gave it a 2 star though. And I have said that in my review. It was bad. For me, it wasn't Morbius bad, don't get me wrong, but it was bad. I think it was an origin story that probably didn't need to be told. We probably could have summarised the entirety of the movie in a 5-minute, flashback in an upcoming movie where, Madam Web as a character exists, which I do like the character Madam Web from like the animated series and stuff like that when I was a kid. But I don't think we needed an entire movie telling us how she became Madam Web. I think Dakota Johnson, did okay in a role. Like, what they had to deal with was what they had to deal with, But yeah, as I say, it's not as bad as Morbius in my opinion. Morbius is by far the worst Sony Spider-Verse movie. But yeah, there it is. Madam Web 2 star. Up into 11th then now, and we've got some animation ones to get into. So the first animation one I watched was actually a Netflix release, and this was Orion in the Dark. And the basic premise of this story is basically Orion is this young kid, and he's actually voiced by, I think his name is Jacob Tremblay, who is the voice of Luca in Pixar film, in the Pixar film. But Orion basically is afraid of everything, and he's obviously, he is afraid of the dark. So Dark decides to, help him and overcome his fear. And it's a bit of an adventure film in that sense. It was like okay in some parts, but it was like a tale of two halves really. I really enjoyed the beginning of the film, and then it just started to like go like very futuristic, and just all of a sudden it was like we're looking at Orion as an old man. It just, I don't know, didn't make sense in our point of view. But yeah, I gave it a 2.5 stars. I think the animation looked pretty nice. It was a DreamWorks Pictures animation, so it did look pretty nice, and it had a different style to it than like we're used to. I like a lot of these studios doing this different styling, but yeah, nothing special. In at number 10 then this month, and again another animation movie. This was instead a cinema release. For some reason we had this early February, whereas everyone else in the world had this like towards the end of last year. But the UK had it this month, and that was Migration. So Migration is the new Illumination Pictures movie, which is the studio that does things like Despicable Me and the Minions and all that. And Migration is their newest venture, or newest brand, I guess, in this. Basically, the film is all about birds that migrate in the winter, and they always go like migrate somewhere warm in the winter, and enjoy their winter break, I guess. But it's about these ducks that are in a pond, and they've never left the pond, and they want to migrate and join that migration. But the dad's very like stuck in his ways. It was alright. Like, I enjoyed the first half of the movie, similar to Orion in the Dark. But the end of it just was a bit thing. It was just a bit like half done. It felt a bit, and I didn't like the human didn't have a voice actor, so he was just like grunting all the time. It reminded me of things like Mr. Bean, the animated series. So yeah, a little shame there, because that was probably one of my picks of the month that I was really looking forward to, and I thought it would do a lot better than it did. Unfortunately, 2.5 star for me. So yeah, it's a pretty much it's a real shame, that is, to be honest. Top 10 now then, so we're in at number 9, and yeah, this was again another big movie of the month, to be honest, and I was really looking forward to this based on the trailer, but in hindsight, it probably shouldn't have. And that film is Argylle. Argylle has so many stars in it: Henry Cavill, Dua Lipa, John Cena, Bryce Dallas Howard, we've got Sam Rockwell, Bryan Cranston, like a massive, massive cast in that film. But that was it. That was the selling point. It was that. I think I said in the review that it felt like a streaming movie, even though it had a big cast. The plot, everything was just dull, boring. But yeah, it felt to me just like a bog standard streaming movie, you know, which obviously is going to be on Apple, ironically, in a couple of months. But to have the cinema release, capitalise on that revenue based on the like cast, I guess, was one thing. But the story was boring. The script was very scary movie-ish, if you know what I mean, and I just didn't enjoy it. So yeah, Argylle 2.5. In at number 8 then now, and again this is another one that I thought would be a lot better than it was, and it weren't, and this is the Bob Marley biopic. This is Bob Marley One Love. Again, I gave it a 2.5 star because I feel like the story building wasn't really there for me. It didn't really blow me away in that sense, if you know what I mean. The performance and acting was okay. I think Lashana Lynch was the better actress or actor in the entire film. Yeah, I just think, you know, the only thing good about it really for me was the informativeness, I guess, in terms of how real is it, I'm not too sure, but you know, it was quite informative. I didn't really know much about Bob Marley's life, so I enjoyed that aspect of learning a bit more about his life. But that's it, you know. The music was nice to, like, you know, refamiliarize myself with some music. It was a good experience. I think the cinema vibe was good, but yeah, that was it. I really hoped it was better than that, but it just wasn't. I'm really gutted, to be honest. In at number 7 then now, we have another new streaming movie review, and this was one that is actually a Hulu exclusive, so in the UK it's a Disney Plus exclusive, and that movie is Suncoast. So I gave Suncoast a 3 star. This is a film that basically is like these 3 people live basically in the film, and so this young girl Doris, her brother is dying, and he is in Suncoast, which is basically this like hospice where people go to die, and you know, her mum Christine, she's a teenager, she wants to grow up, she wants to, like, you know, live life and be a bit rebellious and all that. Woody Harrelson's in the movie as well as Paul. They have a really unlikely relationship and bond over some things. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a nice drama film. There was some good depictions of like young people. Like I said before, like when I watch young people, sometimes it makes me cringe. But in that film, it was actually quite okay, and it was pretty decent. But yeah, I think the performances are pretty good. It felt like a streaming film, to be honest, but you know, it would have been a nice film in the cinemas. But yeah, Suncoast 3 star. Number 6 then now, and we have a weird one in the UK. So this is one that is on like iTunes and stuff like that. You have to like rent it or buy it. And this is Miller's Girl. It stars Martin Freeman and Jenna Ortega, and the reason why I got into this one was because I was very intrigued as to you know, this film, because the plot of this film is very out there, and I didn't like the plot at all because it just made me feel uncomfortable watching it, in terms of, you know, Jenna Ortega is basically playing a student and she wants to I guess groom her teacher Martin Freeman, who is Mr. Miller, and she wants to have sex with him basically. It's a very weird turn, but as a film, hence why I gave it a 3 star, it just was made fantastically. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it had real amazing cinematography in the film. I mentioned one shot that she was like smoking a cigarette and like the end of it was lit up on her eyes. It just looked fantastic, that shot did, and it just really was good. But as a plot, as a film, acting performances, it was a bit subpar over on that front, and yeah, it just made me feel uncomfortable at times. It was quite a quick film though, 90 odd minutes, so it was quite quick, but it just, as I say, made me feel uncomfortable, and that's never good. Now we're going into the top 5 then now, and we're going up to 3.5 stars, and this isn't actually on a Best Picture nomination, and I gave it a 3.5 star, and this is The Zone of Interest. This is the movie that is based in Auschwitz, so you're basically watching the family of the camp lieutenant person, and you're basically like watching them live their life. It was a very interesting like view of, like, you know, Nazi Germany and the Auschwitz and all that from like the family's point of view. Most of the time when we watch these films, it's very much like quite gruesome and more about the prisoner's point of view rather than, you know, like the German point of view. So you saw like the wives having like new handbags and like stuff like that, which obviously would have been taken from the Jews and stuff. So very interesting film, very interestingly shot. It was 100% in Polish. A very strange film. Really like the end of the film where it went back to Auschwitz in the museum where I've actually been, so it resonated with me a little bit. But that's, yeah, 3.5. I get that Oscar hype, but for me it didn't really, you know, blow me away enough to be like amazing for an Oscar. Speaking of Oscar though, and one that I thought would have been in the nomination somewhere but didn't get in the nominations, is The Iron Claw. I actually put that in at number 4 and I gave it a 3.5 star. A true story starring Zac Efron, who I think gives his performance of his career basically, and I think that's the one nomination I think was missing, is it him as best actor in my opinion. I'm not sure if there's something to do with Deadline, but I think he should have been. It's a true story family film about a wrestling family, and I think they're called the Von Erichs, yeah. So it's about the Von Erichs family, and Zac Efron plays Kevin, and yeah, so like a wrestling film. It's really interesting, true story. There's some slow parts in the film, but it does pick back up. But I think there's some performances in the film, not just from Zac Efron, but from the entire ensemble cast as well. And also mention Jeremy Allen White as well. He played Kerry, and he did great in it as well. So performance-wise, I thought it was really good, but just like as a film, there was some bits in there that just did die off a little bit for me. But I think Zac Efron should have been nominated for some award for this film, but I'm not sure why he wasn't, to be honest. A movie that has had a lot of nominations though, and my third favourite film of the month, is American Fiction. Similar to everything else, this is basically like another film that's come out early in February in the UK, but it came out months ago in other places. I gave it a 3.5 star. I did enjoy it, but I didn't expect the plot to be as like deep as it was. I think Jeffrey Wright's performance was brilliant and warranted that Oscar performance. You know, but I just think the film as a whole just missed certain key points for me. And yeah, there was a point in there as well where it felt like all the good jokes were basically like in the trailer, and if you watch the trailer then it ruins the experience in the film. You try and take that out of it, but obviously once you've already seen something it makes you feel like, oh, you know, I've already seen that bit. But again, my best 3.5 star of the month. Definitely think that this is an outside shot for Oscars because they like this sort of thing, you know. Number 2 then now, and a 4-star movie and the most British film I have ever seen in a long time. This is Wicked Little Letters. I went to see this in a limited screening, went to see it early, really enjoyed it. Stars Olivia Colman, stars Jessie Buckley, and it's based on like a true story, or loosely based on a true story. The funniest film of the year so far for me. I barely laughed. I was sat next to an 80-year-old. The experience in the cinema was amazing, having like, you know, very different ages and demographics in the cinema. It was awesome, and the performances were brilliant. I gave it a 4 star. The enjoyment was there. The like shots were just class. Like how this was filmed was just really nice down the camera. It just very appealing, very Vicar of Dibley vibe is what I said in the review, and yeah, very much enjoyed. So I gave it a 4 star. But my best film of the month, and one that I think this person needs to win, well, I'm torn in terms of if she needs to win Best Actress, but I wouldn't be disappointed if she did win Best Actress at the Oscars, and this is Anatomy of a Fall. This is the 2.5 hour long movie of basically this family, and this guy falls down off the ceiling of the attic space rather of like this log cabin, and Sandra is up against it. She is basically framed for potentially murdering her husband, and yeah, it's a very interesting crime drama. A lot of it takes place in like in a court and all that. It's a French film, so a large part of the movie is in French, but there is some English scenes as well. Obviously there's subtitles throughout, but it wasn't off-putting. It was very engaging. It felt very real. I very much enjoyed it, and yeah, it was just very like, it was like a lot of different emotions in there for me. I found it to be very impactful, very hard hitting, you know, and there was just a lot of like emotion behind the lead actress, which as I say, Sandra, I think her name is Sandra Hüller, she did fantastic in this film. She was actually playing Sandra Voita, which is confusing, but yeah, so yeah, she was brilliant, and I think I've never heard of her before. I want to see more of her stuff. And yeah, if she gets Best Actress, her or Emma Stone, I'll be very happy with. But yeah, there it is. There's my top 13 movies of February 2024. We got there in the end. Let me know your thoughts down below if you've seen all of these. And as always, if you want to go and see my more detailed review of each one of them, then each one of these has an individual video on the channel, so you can go over there and catch up. But thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.